So you may remember that I made this video a few months ago, this video exactly, but that video is so bad, and recently I've been rewatching loads of my old popular videos and it's absolutely terrible, so here I am remaking it. Hi folks, Harry here and welcome back to Other Worlds Than These. So, today's video is an updated version of where to start reading Stephen King. So a question that I get quite often is, where should I start? And I used to direct them to this old cringe video, but instead I am now going to start directing to this video, which hopefully will be a lot better. So basically today I will be just showing you some books that I think would be perfect for you, depending on your reading tastes and your favourite genres and what you've read already. I will be recommending you Stephen King books to start off your journey in this multiverse. So starting off, it's quite complicated to choose a starting Stephen King book because they all take place in the same multiverse. All of them are connected in some way. And when all of King's books are connected, it's very difficult to choose a starting book. So with the Stephen King multiverse, there is not one place you can start. You can essentially start anywhere, but there are a few books that you definitely should not start with, which is where it does become a little bit difficult. So I will just be giving you 6 recommendations for where to start with your Stephen King journey. To start off, I'm going to give you the book that I think everyone should start off reading Stephen King with. That's The Shining. So I actually started my Stephen King journey with none of the books I'm about to recommend to you. I started with It, bad move. The Shining is the book that I think every single person should start with Stephen King. This is my #1 recommendation for where to start with Stephen King. And here's why. So I recently reread The Shining because I feel like I didn't appreciate it enough the first time. Reread it and it's now my 3rd favourite Stephen King book. And I loved it so much more on the reread than I did the first time. It's the perfect blend of chaos and horror and insanity, and it's also connected to the Dark Tower heavily, so this is a good sort of gateway to the rest of Stephen King's books, because after reading this, you'll kind of want to figure out how all of it is connected, which will lead you to things like the Dark Tower and It, and maybe other things as well. So I think that this is a brilliant gateway to all of Stephen King's books. So this is another book that I would recommend to people who want to start off. It's Salem's Lot. This is not usually talked about in Stephen King recommendation videos, but this book is bloody brilliant, and let me tell you why. This is a classic vampire gothic horror novel. I have to admit, I am a fan of things like Twilight, where they do sexualize vampires. I do enjoy some soppy vampire romance. I am a sucker for that. I honestly prefer the creepy vampires like Kurt Barlow in this, and Dracula, and Nosferatu, like all of the classic vampires. I love those more than, like, you know, Edward Cullen. But I love Edward, Team Edward. Classic vampire novel, and I think that if you hate the smutty vampire stuff, horror vampire stuff is definitely a good idea. It does not sexualize the idea of vampires. I think that this is also a great starting point for Stephen King because it is connected to the Dark Tower series, specifically the 5th book. It's also just horrifying, and it definitely gives you a taste of Stephen King's writing style when it comes to horror, but also the characters are great, and also this has, in my opinion, the best world building in any Stephen King books. So this is set in the town of Jerusalem's Lot, and just the development of that town is just absolutely incredible in this book, and it's got a really eerie vibe. So I think when Halloween comes, I'll probably read this again, and I think that you should too. When it comes to Halloween, you should give this book a go, and I think you'd really enjoy it. So the next one is probably the Stephen King book that has scared me the most, and this is Pet Sematary. A creepy, disturbing Stephen King fix. I feel like the title is kind of misleading because it's talking about a pet cemetery, so you might expect, oh yeah, animals die, which they do, but it's so much more than that. It has amazing descriptions of the process of grief, mourning, and really horrifying topics. These sensitive topics are written so accurately. This book is a perfect depiction of what people might feel like when they've lost a loved one. This book horrifies me and I love it. I've read this one twice as well, and I want to reread it soon again, even though I read it in May. This book probably has the best display of emotion in Stephen King's works because no other author has ever come close to the mastery of human emotion that Stephen King writes in his books, and I think that this is the perfect example of that. It's just a perfect description of human emotion, and I think that this would be a good start to Stephen King if you really want to understand how talented of a writer he is, because I think this is some of the best writing that he's ever done. If you really want to look at the writing side of Stephen King, like how well he writes, I think this is a great way to go. So next up is my second favourite Stephen King book of all time, and I'm going to recommend this to people who more like sci-fi. They don't really want to be scared, they just want a taste of Stephen King that is in no way horror. And for this one I'm going for 11/22/63. This is actually very reminiscent of my third ever YouTube video where I reviewed 11/22/63 because I'm holding the book up like this and I'm wearing this hoodie. This is just a masterpiece. This is one of Stephen King's newer books. This is the newest book on this list that I'm going to recommend to you today. So this book is about an attempt to prevent the assassination of President John F. Kennedy by travelling back in time. But it's not just that, it's so much more than that. I think you should know that with Stephen King's books, there is no one meaning or one storyline. There is so much more to every concept. So Pet Sematary is about animals dying, but it's so much more than that. It's about human emotion, grief, and death. That's the best example I can think of right now, but 11/22/63 is an amazing sci-fi story. It's got an amazing romance. Stephen King doesn't tend to write romance as well, but this is a masterpiece. The relationship between Jake and Sadie in this book is one of the best romances I've ever seen, like full stop. I love it. And this book broke me a million times over, and this is one of the most thrilling Stephen King books. It's not scary in any way, shape or form, but it's definitely thrilling, and I think if you want a sci-fi thriller, this is the perfect way to go. If you've got some patience, because this is a chonker, I think you should definitely give this a go because it is a masterpiece. So next up, I kind of have to recommend this book by default because it is my favourite Stephen King book. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will know what my favourite Stephen King book is. It is Misery. This book is about a writer who gets into a car crash and is saved by his #1 fan, where she essentially kidnaps him and takes him into her care. And when I mean care, I mean torture, basically. So the reason why I recommend this book so much is, well, there are multiple reasons. One, I think it's the perfect length for a book. This copy is 369 pages, and I think that if it was any shorter or any longer, it would not be as good. This is a horrifying tale of obsession gone wrong, and this is an amazing story. I just love it so much. So this book has amazing writing and amazing characters. It's got my favourite villain in any Stephen King book, and I have so many memories attached to this book. I've read this twice, and actually I've read most of these books twice, but this book is just so good. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. Just read it. Just read. It's so good. It's so good. Just read. Just read it. So lastly, I have a recommendation for fantasy fans. So if you are a fan of fantasy, specifically like high fantasy, like adult high fantasy, I think you would massively enjoy the Dark Tower series. This is Stephen King's magnum opus, in other words, his masterpiece. It is the part of the Stephen King multiverse that connects everything. So if you want a deep understanding of how everything in the Stephen King multiverse is connected, this is just a masterpiece. Actually, this first book is not that great, but the rest of the series is just absolutely incredible, and it just shows how the rest of the Stephen King multiverse is connected, and I think it is geniusly written. So after I finish the Dark Tower series, I'm currently in the middle of the last book. I am going to reread this, and I think I would appreciate it so much more. So don't let this first book, if you don't like this, or if it's a little bit underwhelming, don't let that put you off, because the rest of the series is banging. It's so good. I would definitely recommend this to fans of adult high fantasy. So I haven't read it, but if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings, then I think you would like this. Even if you're a fan of YA fantasy, which I am, I'm a massive YA fantasy fan, I think you would enjoy this. It is a trippy, chaotic masterpiece, just like most Stephen King books. It's so good. I'm sorry I don't really have many reasons as to why you should read this. I'm just sort of saying read it, read it, read it. But just read it. You'll thank me later. Although, I feel like you should not start with The Gunslinger, the first book. I think you should start with The Shining. That is my ultimate recommendation. I think you should start with The Shining. But once you've read The Shining, I think this could be a good second book to read, because this is sort of introducing you to how the multiverse is connected, and I think it's a great way to go. But if you don't really care about the rest of Stephen King and you just want some fantasy, then definitely go for this, because it is a masterpiece. So these are all of the Stephen King books that I'm recommending you today. I hope this was slightly better than my old video. I don't know if I'm actually going to private that video now. If you think that this video helped you and you think it would help others, please forward this video. I think that would really help people wanting to get into Stephen King. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up. Comment below if you are considering starting Stephen King and you are going to pick up one of the books that I recommended to you. Any of these books to start off, I will be extremely happy because I love every single one of these books with all my heart. So if you've just discovered my channel through this video, please consider subscribing and turn on post notifications by ringing that bell if you want to be notified every single time I upload a new video. My Goodreads link is in the description below, as is my Instagram. I hope you had a great day, hope tomorrow's even better, and I will see you for another video. Goodbye.